What's up, guys? Happy Tuesday. Matt here, back for another daily EDW video here for you. And we've got one chapter here in the Old Testament today, 1 Samuel chapter 14. Yesterday we started to see the unraveling of Saul, him disobey God, and then Samuel showed up and said, hey, we're going to set up another king that's going to be better than you because you ruined it, you messed it up. You have sinned against God in a really grievous way, and so it's time to move on. But Saul, he's going to continue to be king for a while, but God's favor, if you will, is not going to stay on Saul for the rest of his life. He's going to continue to kind of spiral out of control, similar to the Judges, maybe not as bad as the Judges period, but still, Saul, he's not a great guy. He continues on here in chapter 14. We see his son Jonathan, who you should know as David's best friend. And anyway, so his son Jonathan was fighting, and he led an army and defeated a big army of the Philistines. And so this was a great thing. But then Saul randomly, because he's so smart, he makes a vow, and he says in verse 24, he says, "Cursed be the man who eats food until it is evening, and I have avenged on my enemy." So he wasn't done with his portion of fighting, and so he said, anyone that eats more food today, they're going to be cursed. Which, to me, I've never been to war, but I'm assuming that you're going to need ample amounts of food to continue to keep that energy up, and water, and all of those things that you need to be at tip-top performance. And so anyway, we see the people get really tired, they get really weak. But then Jonathan, he doesn't know that this happened. And so he finds some honey, and he tastes some honey, and he eats it. And then people start freaking out like, hey, dude, your dad said that it curses anyone who eats food. And then Saul, he gets really mad by the end, and he said, okay, well, Jonathan should die because of this, his own son. So just picture this. Your dad is going to kill you because you ate food. Just put that into some kind of perspective. And that's what Saul was doing here. Again, Saul, not a great guy. He's very rash. He's very reactive. And so we start to see just Saul continue to get worse and worse, even all the way down to trying to kill his son, which he doesn't end up doing here. But still, it's a very serious and egregious situation going on here in 1 Samuel chapter 14. But now let's go over to the book of John. John chapter 7, we are going to start in verse 30, and read on to the end. Remember yesterday we saw Jesus basically talking about his authority, and people starting to recognize that, people starting to notice that, start to get mad a little bit, start to ask questions. Is this the guy? Is this the Messiah and the Christ? So then this continues on. Officers start coming to arrest Jesus, and so we start to see really the public eye turn against Jesus here in John chapter 7. And Jesus is continuing like, hey guys, I am coming to bring life. He talks about he's coming, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water, he says in verse 38. The Spirit was going to continue to work through Jesus' ministry, but people were starting to get really upset. It was causing division among a bunch of people. Remember, like I said yesterday, we don't often have any sympathy for the people in Jesus' day, because we all sit here and we say, oh, of course Jesus is God. Of course Jesus is the Christ and the Messiah. But these people, they were still figuring it out. So they start to ask questions. Some side with the Pharisees. Some side with Jesus. They're intrigued by Jesus and what he's teaching. There's a bunch of people asking a lot of questions. And so that's what's going on here today in John chapter 7. But again, it's important for us to reflect on Jesus' his claims of authority, and also the opposition that he received, but he never fought back. It's very interesting. I know this is a little off topic, but it's very interesting to look at just other religions. And oftentimes there is defending oneself and lots of fighting and wars. If you start to study the history of some of these different religions that you read about in your history books, you'll notice it's actually a lot of wars. It's a lot of fighting. It's a lot of killing. It's a lot of silencing opponents. And Jesus here, people oppose him, And he just sits there and he takes it. He says, okay, I'm going to preach to my people. And we see ultimately when Jesus is tried at the end of his life before he was crucified, what did he do? Did he fight back? Did he tell all of his disciples to go grab some swords and start to fight the Jewish leaders or the Roman leaders? No, Jesus sits there and he takes it. And again, I think that in and of itself is proof that Jesus is the real deal. We see lots of cult leaders, like Joseph Smith, for example, the Mormons, like he had a big host of people fighting for him and trying to break him out of jail. We see that even just with Islam and Muhammad. Again, lots of wars, lots of fighting, lots of defending oneself. We see Jesus here. He's not doing that. He's obviously still preaching. He's not stopping or silencing that. But he's very calm. Actually, he doesn't fight. Doesn't tell his disciples to fight. He tells them to just preach. And I think that's very interesting and very comforting for us to read here in John chapter 7. But now let's go over to the book of Psalms. Psalm 109 is where we're at today. Psalm 109. Your ESV Bible's entitles it, "Help Me, O Lord my God." And I think when you see Psalms with titles like that, those are the kind of Psalms that you want to sit down, you want to read, you want to drink from, and you want to turn into your own prayers, because I can tell you, every single person watching this video can sit here and say, God, help me. And there's this dependence upon God to deliver you from a certain situation, certain trial or whatever you're going through right now. It's important for us to continue to call out to God. Maybe he won't deliver you at the very moment that you want him to, because God's will is a lot higher and more perfect than our will. But good reminder for us to continually go before God in prayer, asking for God to help us, to save us, to be near to us. And so hopefully this psalm encourages you today as you sit down and you read it. Psalm 109 is what we're reading today. But now let's go over to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 15. We're going to read 3 more verses. Verse 5, 6, and 7, it says, "A fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but trouble befalls the income of the wicked. The lips of the wise spreads knowledge, not so the hearts of fools." Verse 5 is very, very important for every student watching this video. "A fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent." Heeding reproof, heeding correction, making sure that you are obeying your parents rather than purposely trying to rebel against them. It seems so much easier to disobey them because they seem so harsh, or they seem like they're always putting rules up in my house and trying to make my life worse. Well, if you think those things, you just need to stop, because I know your parents. I know that is not their intention. That is not their motivation. That is not why they set up rules in your house. They do it because they love you and protect you. They discipline you when you break those rules because they love you. They correct you so that you don't end up, when you're out of the house at 18 years old, you go to college and you're just a wreck. They want to make sure that you aren't a wreck. They want to make sure that you are heeding their reproof, that you are prudent and wise when you leave their house. So today, Tuesday, what a great opportunity it is for you to heed your parents' instruction, to do what they ask you to do, to not complain, to not rebel, to disobey, but to submit to them, because you know that God has placed them in your life for a purpose. You know that they love you, and they're putting up rules in your life for the sake of protecting you and teaching you, rather than trying to cramp on your style. So it's really important for you to obey your parents today. Be that person who heeds reproof, and be that prudent, wise person. Don't be the fool who despises your father or your mother's instruction. So a good thing for us to leave here on the table of conviction here today. But hopefully that's something that you can do today. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another convicting edition of Every Day in the Word, because every time we open God's Word, it is convicting. But that's the point, because it should get us to change. So hopefully you can do that today.